I'll call this meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors to order for February 8th, 2025. Welcome, everybody. I imagine it's cold where you're at, unless you're, hey, it might even be cold in Texas for all I know. So anyway, I would entertain a motion to acknowledge the minutes for,
February 5th and February 10th, so moved.
okay,
Then I'll second it.
discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good morning, Twain.
Good morning, supervisors. Had a little bit of snow and ice last week, so the crews got a little overtime in. And even this morning, they went out at 5 just to make sure that they had pavements dust or drift free and ice where needed. I drove in Pleasant Plain Road. It was in pretty good shape early this morning, so we'll just keep monitoring how much the rural roads drift with the wind off and on through the week and the cold weather, and do what we can to keep everything open for the rural residents. Let's see. Right now at the department, we have bids coming in for fuel tomorrow. So we'll have that, hopefully we'll get some good numbers and we will have that ready for award next week. We're trying to go through our records and find out. Right now we're getting our oil from Farm Service, and they monitoring devices on them that are Farm Services. And we have a hard time finding the paperwork for the agreement that's on that. So we're trying to figure out if we're in a long-term contract with them or not. You know, and I'm getting a lot. We're not finding much backup, so we need to get a hold of folks at Farm Service and see if they have any records. I sent an email this morning to Representative Miller Meek's office to see if they could give me an update on the community funding grants that we're awaiting on 110 with all the drama or whatever going on in Washington. I kind of like to at least get an opinion from somebody on the ground out in DC and see if they have any better feel for what's going on out there. On our bridge projects or bridge maintenance projects that we're looking forward to this year, we've got Joe's bridge there on 165th. It's not Joe's bridge, it's just the bridge by
The
Joe's.
county's bridge.
It's the bridge by Joe's house.
Thank
That
you.
was planned before he became a supervisor, so this
Thank
is
you.
not, this
And
is
that's my
not,
story and I'm sticking to it.
so we have that one, we have the materials for that on hand.
You mean the road closed sign?
Yeah, the road closed, yeah, and the detour. But then also, 117th is a posted bridge that the superstructure and deck are in decent shape, but the abutments are bad. We had it scheduled for a twin tanker car replacement, but with the price of those tanks now, I think a vent here, which is where they put supplementary piles down and a supplementary support. We did that on Teak and 220th here a few years ago. And that would get that up to full rating at probably 2/3 the cost of what the twin tanks are costing right now. And we're looking for some more option or candidates for that type of repair. Because it's a lot of our bridges are having issues with the substructure, the piers and the abutments, but the decks and support are just in decent shape. So we'll investigate that and kind of keep you guys posted.
I think I asked before, that's something that you guys can do, right? You're planning to do it yourself?
No, we do not have a pile driver.
Oh, that's right.
We
Okay.
would approach Herberger and Iowa Bridge for quotes on that. They're it's under the $100,000 $120,000 bid threshold for maintenance, but getting quotes from those two outfits, they're both relatively close, so we kind of consider them local contractors, Washington and the Kelowna area. But if we can keep them kind of as projects that they can do as filler work, because they don't take that long to do. And if we can let it such that they can fit it in between big projects, we might be able to get more favorable pricing on it, because they're not urgent jobs. They don't need to be done right now. So if we can be a little more lenient with our work window, we should be able to get favorable pricing on those. And that should be all I've got for you guys this week. It's cold. We're not doing much outside. We've got some of the NeoGov safety webinars that the guys are supposed to be up on, that we'll be doing off and on this week, just to be productive and keep the guys' minds on safety as we go forward into warmer weather.
Yeah, I think
Maybe even the end of this week.
Maybe. Definitely not today and tomorrow.
No,
it's gonna be shirt sleeve weather at the end of the week.
well, I know it's all good, but if he's wearing a coat, then not so much. Any questions or anything for Dwayne? All right, moving on. Number 2, discuss and consider Iowa Department of Transportation agreement for traffic safety improvement program funding. Packet.
Yeah. That is the final grant paperwork for the TSIP grant for Libertyville Road, which Traffic Safety Improvement Program is what TSIP stands for. That is a state grant that is geared towards safety improvements. So we've got wider pavement markings designed into the Libertyville Road project, shoulder and center line edge rumble strips, and we're also doing paved shoulders on that. So that $500,000 is covering all those additional features that we had included them in the grant. Basically to make the grant more attractive is having safety features, and that our traffic safety program that we had done in 2014 listed those as features to add, and then our current one that we're having processed will also have those recommended on there. And the $500,000 from that grant counts towards the county's match for the federal grant, so it saves us $500,000 in farm to market money that we don't have to spend towards that.
I have a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Right here. Nothing that you need.
I just need one. They probably want a copy for the auditor's office. I think there's a spot on there for Kristen to sign.
You're the only one that signs on the
Yeah.
here, you have that.
Actually, they can have the one copy and they just email it to me after they get it signed. We do very little original paperwork with the DOT anymore. Everything is e-signatures, or they've got a document system that they call Doc Express, that a lot of the stuff that we do is just electronic signatures on that site.
All right. Josh,
Good morning. I really don't have a lot to report today.
where'd you get your coat?
I don't
I've
remember.
never seen that.
It's not new.
Off the patient.
Yeah. We don't talk about those things. So 2 of us have completed the billing class. We have one that's about halfway through, a little bit past. They'll probably be done this week, so we're still pushing forward on that. I'm gonna reach out to Washington County to kind of touch base with their biller and get a little bit more insight on those kind of things. Training program, I am still waiting on a few documents, and then I can submit our application to the state and to accreditation once I get those things in. So yeah, just working on day-to-day stuff. Nothing really crazy going on right now.
That tire fix that rig?
It did when I first drove it, when we first got it back. It seemed a little better, and then the weather hit, so I haven't really taken it out again, but it does really well in town. It's just the highway that I'm really unsure of for now. But it seems to have, at least for now, so you know, at some point we'll look for we'll look to get new tires on everything, because they're about worn out, so.
Oh, something else we're gonna ask you now, I guess it wasn't too important because I don't remember what it was. Any questions for Josh? I don't know, I'll figure it out later.
I do have a
Happens to
question.
me a lot, it's fine.
You have a rig out at Southeast Iowa Diesel.
No, all of our stuff's back now.
How would it cost?
I honestly don't remember. I don't know if I got a bill, I didn't look that closely, honestly.
What did he do to it?
He didn't really do much to it. Like, he got under there, he said, I think they were gonna just kind of tighten some things up a little bit, and then they found there was a tire that was kind of jacked up. So I went over to Iowa Tire, got a new tire on it, just an expensive one for now. But they really didn't find a lot when they were underneath it, so.
Real good.
Yeah, and I mean, the rear end of that ambulance seems to be in good working order, so not as bad as we thought, but yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Whenever you get ready to do tires, check a couple different places.
Oh, yeah. yep,
Yeah, I guess Fairfield Tire does a lot of state work.
oh, okay,
So you should check with him as well.
okay, perfect.
Anything else, Josh?
Good.
Yeah, we didn't bring any food.
Sorry. Next time.
Discuss and consider county and MHDS region data release form. I asked this on,
Thanks, John.
I talked to Christie, I was a little bit confused. In part because of the terminology they use, but the custodian is responsible for complying with state and federal privacy confidentiality laws related to the records. They're being sent to ISAC and ICTS, and so I called Ryan Wood. She's always been my go-to person when it comes to mental health and regions and this and that and whatnot, and basically all of this information is going to HHS. And we are, and Christie, if I still don't understand this correctly, my understanding is that ISAC and ICTS hold these records and we're authorizing them to release them to Health and Human Services. But I wanted it on here so that you guys knew what was going on, and that we actually had it on record that we made a motion to authorize the release of these records to the Department of Health and Human Services. So I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, any questions you have? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. You need 2 copies, do you?
I don't know, do we need 2 copies?
No, just one.
Okay. Discuss and consider services with Grasshoppers LLC. So they do see why. Take care of our grounds and stuff as far as the fertilizing, eliminating weed control. Then it is $705 is the cost for the courthouse, the Fairfield Arts and Convention, DHS, and
Attorney,
huh,
county attorney.
county attorney.
Is this something they've been doing in the past then?
Yes,
Okay,
I think it's something that initially, I think, Dave worked out with them. They've been doing it for a long time.
Lee, again, my question is, why are we paying for the Arts and Convention Center?
Preacher to the choir here. I don't have a good answer for you on that one. Other than to say, because we always have,
That's not good enough,
I know. So
because, seems like we do all their
we do,
grounds work there.
yeah,
Like,
we provided rock in the past. And
yeah,
generally what we do is we have the rock dumped and then they hire somebody to spread it.
why did we start this? I mean, you don't have any clue.
That might be great. You know, I was the one that said no to even agreeing to purchase it, which we didn't. We did not purchase any portion of the building, but
Mhm.
Oh, you're going back to Lonnie days.
uh-huh,
Lonnie,
okay,
he was doing
okay.
snow removal and or whatever, the sidewalks and whatnot.
So anyway, I mean, however you want to handle this, we can ask them to resubmit with a different figure and not cover a FACC, however you want to do it. That's why I had it put on here, so we.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I think at the very least, we should at least talk to them about,
yeah, we should have a conversation
Yeah.
and see,
With FACC.
yeah, and,
yeah, or the city, whoever.
yeah,
Do we mow the yard over there too?
oh,
yes.
yeah,
And it pushes the snow too?
oh, yeah,
I think on the sidewalks,
yeah.
We need to have a conversation with somebody and see, let them explain why we put that on.
I
So-
agree with Joe.
So we'll table this and Abby, if
Sorry.
you could do me a favor
I think we should.
and send an email to Doug, city administrator. And then either he will or he'll delegate somebody or I don't know, because the city owns the building.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Would you do that for me?
sure will.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we'll table this for now.
Thank you, Abby.
Number 5, discuss and consider NACO membership. Again, I asked for this to be placed on the agenda. I don't believe that we have funded it the last couple of years. It's $500. It stands for the National Association of Counties. I mean, it's not gonna make or break us. I just personally don't see the advantage of being a to be a member of NACO.
Well, if we haven't been doing it in the past, we haven't missed it,
No,
so
and I don't even think we budgeted for it this year.
No,
So,
we just drop it.
well,
Do we need a motion?
I I think just for the record, we have a motion so that to not fund NACO membership.
So moved.
second,
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Committee reports. You need me to say no or something. Okay. That sounds serious, Joe.
I don't think I did anything last week. That's according to my wife.
Well, you tell her to give me a call and I'll tell her all kinds of
Okay.
problems you caused.
Okay. I have started going to these Traction Thursday meetings at noon at the Eco Lab, and it's about different people and their business and stuff. It's been very interesting for me.
I thought at first he was going to traction meeting, going to chiropractor.
Well, they call it Traction Thursday, and it's been a very interesting
Okay.
meeting to go to. Other than that, I didn't have anything else. Grandson's basketball game on Saturday, but you don't care about that.
Well, did they win?
No,
Well,
he got a foul again. He has a problem when somebody's hanging on him. He likes to go like this and knock him down. Then he's got a clear shot.
I can't
And
say
they call him on it again.
I can't say as I would blame him for that, honestly.
So that's all I've got.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else, extension council, but that's an ongoing thing these days. Hung out with my little niece yesterday morning.
Oh, let's see, that's probably better than going to a meeting, I would think.
Yeah,
Right, some ponies.
right. No, I'm cold.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, you put sweaters on your ponies? Just curious.
No,
Oh, okay.
but you can come help.
Ah.
But you know what? When the babies are born and it's cold, we have little blankets. You
Okay,
see blankets on big horses that are heavy for little horses.
well, that's good. Hey, little fouls.
Moving on.
Okay. So I had a Rust Board meeting. We went through all of the what I call it, service sewer rate resolutions for each of the sewer systems that we have, which will be in effect beginning of July 1st. Each fiscal year, we review those. We also approved a resolution entering IPATE, which we talked about before, so we'll be transferring funds to that. And we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Henry County Board of Health. We increased their rate, for lack of a better way of putting it, to 78,000. It was an $18,000 increase for the fiscal year. It hasn't been increased since its inception, and we've been doing that for the 3 or 4 years. So, and the Henry County approved it, and it was a long meeting, but it was because we have to go through each system, each resolution, and on those resolutions for those increases and those rates, well, it has to be a roll call, so it takes a little bit longer to go through it. Sean and I met with county attorney and Doug from the city to discuss ostensibly the Mazda barns and the concerns that we had and regarding the lack of a better way of putting it, contract language that we submitted to them. And I don't know, 45 minutes with them? At least. And a myriad of discussions, as far as topics, or not topics, but the discussion itself. I explained that where I was coming from was that this could be like a 28E agreement, much like what we have with the service agency. It's not an uncommon way of doing business. We have several 28E agreements actually with the city, but anyway, in the ensuing conversation, there seemed to be, I wouldn't say resistance, but some question as to whether or not we could do it that way. I expressed that our concern was not being subject to their ordinances, really was, and be able to control the barns. And then Sean, he said, well, he had provided me with a memorandum of understanding, a draft copy that had been drawn up regarding the new campground. And he brought up, he said, we're doing this with the campground and it's subject to Iowa code state laws and conservation has control over all of that. And the city really has very little, if any, jurisdiction. If you read the sections of the code that Sean referenced, and it gives the conservation, county conservation, the authority to acquire in the name of the county through a myriad of reasons or ways, land and other things. And it's subject to 350.4 of the Iowa Code, and they are authorized and empowered over those properties or those entities that they own and manage. And it also states that the County Board of Supervisors may transfer to the County Conservation Board for use as museums, parks, preserves, parkways, playgrounds, recreation centers, playfields, tennis courts, yada, 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 and other recreational purposes, any land and buildings owned or controlled by the Department of Natural Resources or the county or city and not devoted or dedicated to any other inconsistent public use. That's in 350.4, and 350.5 states that the Conservation Board may make, alter, amend, or repeal regulations for the protection, regulation, and control of all museums, parks, preserves, parkways, etc. The only thing it says is the regulation shall not be contrary to or inconsistent with the laws of this state. Sean said, why don't we? Of course, you'll have to bring this before the Conservation Board, but we would put it under conservation's umbrella. We would still maintain it. We would still fund it. We would still take care of it. Leon would still be there. We'd still have the governance board. They don't want to be the custodians of it per se, as far as managing it and mowing it and all that. Everything will be the way that it is. But if we put it under conservation, then it's subject to Iowa code and the state laws therein, and conservation has the run of the place, if you will, and in as much as the trail goes through there, and the city was all on board with that, as was the county attorney. So they're looking at drawing up an MOU. We'll have to look at it as a board and see what the language is, but there is a meeting on the 26th, the conservation.
My board meets on the 26th.
Yes. Which I indicated to Sean, I'd like to go to that meeting. Obviously, you all can go too, if that's what you want to do. We'd have Abby put it on the agenda. Because this all is up to the conservation board as to whether or not they want to just put their toes in the water or jump in, but I thought it was, Sean nailed it as far as that part of it is concerned. The city was all on board with it immediately, as was our county attorney. I think that I came back then, I came in Monday yesterday, and I printed this out and read it. I think it does exactly what we're asking for, which is it takes the city out of the equation per se and gives control, in this case, to the conservation, but it allows us to operate, preserve, and protect the farms under the umbrella of the Iowa code, and it gives conservation the authority to do that. Am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, I think my suggestion was it would just protect that property from the city's ordinances.
Right.
And that's what we're also working out with Jefferson County Park. And basically, it's the city recognizing that Chapter 350, the County Conservation Board's authority over those properties. And it might give you what you're looking for as far as operating that as you have in the future. We're not looking for more work.
Right.
Or really to take anybody. You got a lot of good people on the helping with those barns.
Right.
But it is a historical museum type situation that would fall under what is allowed under what we do.
Right. And they can't be into how do I want to say this? Through this process, any regulations or whatever can't be inconsistent with the laws of the state of Iowa. And so, and as like I said, Doug was all over that. I mean, he just immediately, he said, yes, this is. So they don't want to have anything to do with it, but my concern, as was your guys' concern, was any future governmental body can make changes to ordinances or anything, whether it's this body or whether it's a future city council. So irregardless of any arrangement that we may have entered into regarding city ordinances can ultimately change, whereas this takes into account that the county conservation has. So we would draft a memorandum of understanding that if the board is so inclined to, in theory, turn over the barns to county conservation, then it would fall under that section of Iowa code. And
Thank
then,
you for working on that.
well, we're not, that was Sean.
So my question is this, will we still maintain the current board we have?
Yes, yes. They don't. Sean's not looking to, well, not looking to take on any more
Oh,
work or
Yeah.
anything of that nature, but no, the plannings, the thing, working with Chamber of Commerce, all of that stuff. It just gives us the modicum of control that we want to have. And as Sean will attest to, when were meeting with Chauncey on a Jackson Point matter, and Sean brought up the campground and the city wanting to annex it in, I immediately, my antenna went up and red flags and whatnot, for much of the same reason as this. And so Sean has worked on that as well. And so we might be able to kind of, to fold it, both of them into one recipe, so to speak. We have not agreed to anything. We haven't seen anything yet, but that was
You're going down the right path.
I think so.
Yeah, and I guess the only other thing I would say is we haven't finalized we have a draft of a memorandum of
Right.
understanding that we're still not 100% happy with, so yeah, there's a little bit of work to do yet,
Right.
but I think this is what needs to be done. The city needs to acknowledge for our point of view that we are the governing body on our properties, whether they fall within city limits or not. And they're doing that. They're willing to do that. They're just basically tying up loose ends and working towards the growth of Fairfield, which is fine. But it's in the code of Iowa that we can work with cities, we can work with schools, we can work with all sorts of agencies, including the county, obviously. And we talked about some other properties that are landlocked or islands in the city, but that are county property, but they don't apply the way this does. The only reason we're talking about the barns is because it is kind of a museum type situation that, the history of Iowa and that kind of thing is something that falls under the Conservation Board's lists of things that we do. So I think in this case, it would work. And it would offer the protections of that chapter and probably, give us the say so on what's done on the property over the city versus the city having their ordinances apply.
Yeah, and like I said, Doug he was all over it, so I thought that was a good sign. And because we were at that particular moment before Sean suggested that, we were kind of just skating on ice, not getting anywhere. And I think he understood what we were looking for. He just kept saying, I'm not sure we can do that. And then Sean said, hey, what about this? And bam, all the light bulbs went off. And
Have you talked to Tony Webb?
I have not. And the reason I have not was I wanted to talk to you guys first. Leon has called me. And I know Tony needs to be brought up to speed, as does Leon. I just really didn't have anything to bring them up to speed other than what our thought process was at this point. But I will let them both know that we're working towards a solution. Looks a little different than what we were contemplating at the last conversation we had, but I think that I think this is, because it has the weight of the Iowa code on its side. And since the city was more than willing to go down that road, we'll see what we can come up with. And whatever we come up with will come before the board for final approval, and obviously Sean's board. So
You have to go to the Maston Barnes board too.
they don't have,
Committee, or-
I mean, we certainly through Tony will apprise them of what's going on. But it's a conservation board decision as to whether or not they want to accept it.
Yeah, in other words, that's step one.
Right. And so that's on the 26th at 4 o'clock.
Or
So, I have it written down and I'll just ask Abby to include that on next week's, or is it this week's agenda?
Next week.
Next week's agenda. So that we can all attend if we, if we choose to. And,
Where is it?
it's
at the nature center.
Nature Center. And I wanted to ensure the conservation board that, on paper, it looks like something different than what it would actually be. We would still keep the governance board in place, maintain the operation, the funding, what we're doing now. And I mean, Sean, I know can handle all that, but I just said that I would go in the event that they had any questions.
Yeah, and I'm not making any promises, obviously, I'm not the board, and there have been situations where properties have come up that they said no to, so I don't know what, I think you would want to sell it as, we're just asking for the protections of the code at this time,
Right.
not asking you to take over the operations of the
Which is,
area.
100% correct. There's
That
no,
would be the way to, I would say, to approach it with them.
and, looking at it summarily, same with the new campground. One of the things I brought up in the meeting was specifically to Chauncey. I don't anticipate that the current neighbors across the road would necessarily have a problem, but there's gonna be a significant amount of traffic going in and out of there. And new neighbors that might move in across the road might have a different opinion. And so this is what we were saying to the city was those little differences, if you will, can have an impact. And a future council may look at that and say, well, these are the people that vote for us. We got people coming in here from out of state or out of county. We really don't care what they think because they're not the ones that elect us. So we need to have some protection in place regarding the campground and the ability to be able to function within the city, but not necessarily governed. And our parks, Sean and Dennis have always been great stewards of our conservation. And I spend a lot of time in our county parks, and like I said, which I said in our meeting last week, it doesn't get loud, it doesn't get noisy. Well, sometimes hers, but but no, what I'm saying is that generally speaking, RVers and stuff are really pretty respectable, and I don't anticipate problems in the new campground, but sometimes folks can see things a little bit differently. So, and so we're trying to address those. So I just wanted to apprise you of what was going on, what the date was, and nothing etched in stone, but looks like we've got a direction to move toward.
Good.
Public comments.
I forgot to say, thank you to Joe Ledger for putting us in contact with Farm Service. They have a couple of used anhydrous tanks that are available for scrap price that we should be able to use for road culverts.
Oh,
We got one short one that we can use to improve the entrance to Jefferson County Park off Libertyville Road for Sean. Which should be just the right size. And the cost is considerably less than what we're paying for the tank cars.
Good.
So they're a little lighter duty, but they're heavy enough for what we need. We greatly appreciate it. So thank you, Joe.
Did you ask if they had any others?
Yeah, well, he's got two right now and then his,
Future there could be.
yeah, he'll keep us in mind when he comes across them. If they're kind of within our radius. He's got one at Knoxville and I don't remember where the other one, but it's here in southeast Iowa and the county would be responsible for pretty much everything from picking it up at their site, hiring a crane to load it on a truck and getting it transported where we need it. And then cutting the ends out as well, but the guys assure me that is within our capabilities, so.
so they'll be taking it off the frame and everything?
Yeah.
You just pick up the tank?
We'll pick it up with the crane, take it off the frame, set it on a flatbed and bring it to Fairfield. So we'll have a little more crane expense than we normally would for a tank car, but when they've gone up to $20,000 a piece, you can afford a little crane time.
Yeah. All the lotting and hydrous wagons back in the old days when they did this going down there. So I hate those things. Any other public comments?
I want to thank Sean for all you've done on this Mazda Barnes deal. We appreciate that.
Well, when I mentioned it, I said, this may sound like a harebrained idea, and then it must not.
Fit right in with the rest of us. We're all good.
Well, thank you.
Again, this is early, let's talk to my board and the other people involved, and we'll get it all straight before we get too excited.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to allow claims and approved reports in the amount of,
$165,519.98.
and that covers his bridge, right? Joe Ledger's bridge.
That's not my bridge. If it is, I'm gonna have to put a toll down there.
Yeah, well, we can do that. We'll just put a little coin box on it.
Yeah.
That motion to approve that amount of
Oh, so
claims and
moved.
reports.
And I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we have a budget work session on, unless we need to take a break, we can go right into that if you want to. Susie has an appointment. She needs to be done by 10:45,
No, 10.
or not 10:45, 9:45.
10's okay.
Okay, so. I don't know if there was something, you're doing a,
Sean wanted to talk to you.
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
I'm
why-
sorry, I
That's
apologize.
actually why I'm here, but
Okay. I thought. it
I
was
was
to see
glad
my
to help out
smiling-
with the barn thing too.
I thought it was to see my smiling face. Obviously not.
Well, I just wanted another chance to see what you were thinking after our first meeting and I know I sent an email. My board is trying to get our employee salaries up, and that wasn't what was reflected in what I was hearing with the raises you were suggesting. So I guess that's my main focus. And how do we work that out? You know, if you have a dollar amount with my budget that you're content with, and I can work that out within my budget, but I just didn't want to sit back and let it go through because I have directives from my board to accomplish, and I don't feel like we were getting there based on what I was hearing. And I can refresh your memory if we're unsure of what I'm talking about.
No, I don't need, I mean, you don't need to refresh my memory. fully well aware of what you're talking about, but, so the board, approved a 7% pay increase. And his board,
Have we voted on that yet?
yeah, we did,
No, we didn't.
we didn't. Well, the budget's not final yet, but we voted
You
on
guys
it
are-
for the budget.
No.
Uh-huh.
We've just discussed it.
You've made your intentions known, but there's been no motion on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going 10% for anybody. You open that can of worms, then it just ignites besides which we already have indicated to some members of the public what our thought process was in terms of the direction that we were going after many conversations and what we're looking at in our numbers. And as I've indicated before, as you're all well aware of, anything you do today, you have to be able to sustain moving forward. And what we've discussed, even moving forward, as far as whether it's sustainable is questionable. We just don't know. But we recognize that there was nothing last year. And we're trying to let everybody know that we understand that. And this number was the number that the comp board came up with, which we decided to stay with the comp board as some counties didn't, but we decided that that was in the best interest of everybody in that regard.
Well, I feel like we should treat everybody the same, not do one in department higher than the others, and one lower than the others. So we just comp board's recommendation after last year, no raise at all. I felt it was fair to do it this way with the 7%. That's my thoughts on it. So I realize you want all you can get for your employees and stuff, but we have to worry about a budget too.
Well, and I'm aware of that, and I feel like we've, you're talking about this year, I understand, but those same rules have not applied in the past years. Especially if you look at the list of salaries, my employees are well below other departments. And I also like to point out that we're not really bound to the compensation board. They don't represent us. We keep talking about this 350, which I believe is what I'm looking at here. I can find you in this chapter where my board sets our salaries. For many years, we followed the recommendations of the compensation board, but that has fallen apart for us in the last few years. And I'll just point out 3 years ago, every administrator, except for myself, got a 10 or a 15% raise in this county, and I did not. I got a 5% raise.
And
And
I got 0.
yes, and what I'm offering is to get my employees up. They'll still be the lowest paid according to Abby's list, even with a 10% raise, and that's not right. But it's something for us. And we're talking about 4 people, not 40 people, not a huge department, and I have offered ways to absorb that money. So I don't think you can say we're going to be fair, because you're not being fair. And you're also, you seem to be, and Joe, I know you haven't been around here, but you seem to be changing the rules year by year based on the situation, which maybe, I understand if money's tight, but when you're able to give the entire county 7%, that's a pretty generous raise. And so the little bit I'm talking about, if I can absorb it, I think you have the power. You don't necessarily have the power. You have the power to either cut my budget if times are tough, but according to this code that we keep talking about, my board has the power to set our salaries, and they're recognizing based on these lists they see every year, why are we at the bottom? Why are our employees who are doing the same work, if my operations supervisor was working for Dwayne, he'd be making $6,000 more than he is right now for the same exact work. If I was working an administrative position in any one of these other departments, I would have got a 10% raise, and that's all been neglected over the last few years.
Well,
So it's not fair.
let's understand that, while I hate that term, by the way. Boards of supervisors prior to this year were constrained by state law. Had nothing to do with being fair. And for everybody to understand that when the comp board in previous years recommended pay increases, we were locked into those increases. In terms of, if I looked at, say, John Doe gets 15% and the board said, no, that's too much. We're going to cut it to 10%. That's a 33% cut over 15%, which required us by law to cut everybody else by the same 33%. We had no choice in that regard, fair or otherwise. That's the law. Now, the law has changed, but that was the law at the time. So in regards to that 10% and that 15%, that was established by a comp board out of our control. And we had no choice but to accept those numbers, or if we cut them, everybody had to be cut by the same percentage point. And it only applied to elected officials. And again, according to the law, elected officials who have deputies, we don't set those rules, the state does. Deputies have to remain at a certain percentage of whatever the elected official is. You're right, that year, we gave everybody beyond that scope a flat raise. So some got 6, some got 5, some got 4, some got 3, depending upon, because of the flat rate. So based on what they were making. I've never liked the way that things were set up. And we generally have always tried to give, and I hate the term rank and file, but we've always tried to give the rank and file the same raise that we gave elected officials. But 2 years ago put us in a really tight financial bind to be able to do that. I remember having a conversation with our sheriff, and he wanted to pass that 10% down to the deputies. Understandable. It wasn't in the cards. So here we are today, and the law has changed a little bit. We don't have to do the recommendation of the comp board, but that's the reason that we kept it in place. And we can give 10% to you and 3% to him and 0% to her. We have the authority to do that now under the law. We don't have to do an equal cut to everybody. But like I said, the board in discussions have indicated that they wanted to go with the comp board's recommendation. Okay, you're telling me that, and I don't disagree with you, have the same scenario with public health. You have an autonomous board, and the board can make a recommendation or state that, okay, we're going to pay Sean X amount of dollars. And what this board could say is that that's fine, but this is how much money we're giving you.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. And maybe I'm glad that you're at least aware of that, I understand you've taken on a lot of new money and had tax things that are putting the hurt on us, but I also have a responsibility to do what my board tells me. I also see what's gone on with our department. And I think, in my opinion, it's time. I mean, I understand if you have to cut our budget, I can pass that information on. But nothing's being done to correct what I feel like is we're just getting left in the dust. Because when I get a 5% raise and then a 7% raise, it's not the same as when someone gets a 10% raise and then gets a 7% raise. I lose the rest of my career, which maybe I'm on the tail end of, but it's just not right. I mean, and when I compare what my employees' training, what their actual responsibilities are compared to similar employees in the county, and we're well below, it's just not, I gotta say something every now and then, because what I have said the last few years isn't sinking in, and my board's basically demanding, and they can come in here if that's what's necessary, or we can talk about it at my board meeting, but you know, just because times are tight doesn't mean my people are less important than the other employees in the county. That's just my point of view. I know you gotta do what you gotta do,
It's a
and
valid
we
point
do
of view,
too.
but I reiterate what I just said. We appropriate a certain amount of money.
Yes,
That's what we approve. When we approve the budget and it's certified, we've appropriated X amount of dollars. How you spend those dollars is not under our jurisdiction. However, if you come back in the middle of the fiscal year saying, I need a budget amendment because I've spent too much money, this board has the authority to say, no, we're not giving you any more money. So I'm not sitting here telling you or your board what you spend that money on. What I'm telling you is that this is how much money we're going to appropriate to your budget. And you have some revenue from external sources and stuff.
and does someone know what that number is? Because
Well, yeah,
I have not been
you submitted a budget. And in that budget, you submitted a 10%. We are recommending, right now, the board is considering 7. So that budget would be reduced accordingly by that amount. So your IPERS, your social security, and your salaries would be, and when I say IPERS and social security, if you're getting 7 as opposed to 10, obviously those numbers
Yes, I'm
go
aware.
down. And so that's the amount of money that we would appropriate based on that number. Everything else that you submitted would remain the same. So what we're looking at when we approve your budget is with this particular percentage in mind. And so I'm just gonna use a hypothetical number. So we're going to approve $100,000. All right, how you spend that $100,000 basically is up to you and your board, because that's what we've appropriated. But we're not required to do a budget amendment or to approve a budget amendment if you overspend. You know, by the same token, you get money coming in revenue that you didn't anticipate. You have to do a budget amendment to have spending authority on that. It's just a routine thing, but because otherwise you don't have the authority to spend it. That's just the way the process works. So we're going to say to public health, we're going to appropriate X. To Dwayne, we're going to appropriate X. We do that to everybody because that budget is certified then based on those dollar amounts to the state of Iowa. And absent a budget amendment, those are hard and fast numbers. And that's the one modicum of control that the board has moving forward once a budget is submitted. How you spend that money. So, you know, I can sit here, for example, and this is not, I can remember in years past, long before, for example, sometimes circumstances happen, for example, and maybe sheriff's office needs to replace a vehicle that they didn't anticipate they were going to have to replace. Maybe because it got rammed by somebody or whatever the case may be. That was not an expense that they had in their budget, but they had money in their budget to do that. And we're not saying, no, you can't because you have the money in your budget. But if you come back later and want a budget amendment, we may not give you a budget amendment because, and here's the thing that we're looking at, if we maintain status quo right now based on these numbers and other people's numbers, when we approve that budget, if we did 0 increases on anything in our budget moving forward with what we currently have, with the revenue coming in, no increases based on the information that Shannon has given us, we would lose $394,000 a year. So the reserve that we have, we would eat up in about 5 years. And that's with no increases. Now, we can assume that there's going to be some increase in taxable revenue. But according to the current legislation, if that taxable revenue increase exceeds a certain percentage point, we have to cut. We have no choice. So that's what I mean when I say we have to be able to sustain whatever it is that we do. I can't sit here and tell you that you can't give more than 7%. What I can sit here and tell you is that odds of you getting a budget amendment to cover that later on in the year, if you can't find it somewhere else within the money that's appropriated, that's a different question. I know in your email, you suggested some ways that you could maybe find that revenue within your budget. But that's how the process works. I'm not really dictating to you what you pay your employees. What I'm saying is this is how much money I'm going to give you. Whatever the board decides, that's how it works. And then what you do with it, what your board decides to do with it, is within your board's discretion by law, as is public health. But our discretion is in the middle of the fiscal year when the budget amendment is needed, whether we decide to do that or not.
Sean, I have a question. You have 4 employees. How much are we talking dollar wise?
Well,
Just-
I
just
said
the figure.
in that email, I had said it's $8,000 to go from the 7 to the 10, which I can come up with. I mean, I have not been a problem
Right.
going over my budget ever.
No,
My department's
agreed.
very frugal and efficient, and it to the point that sometimes it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't see. I understand everything you're saying. I mean, I'm just, if you go through that list, you're gonna see. I have employees that are paid, it's the blue line this year, well below comparable positions. And when that shows up year after year, my board has noticed it, and I won't say they're mad, but they want a correction. And that's why I'm pushing. And it is a mental thing when you see, well, this isn't fair. When my employees know it, and I don't want to get into the whole retaining employees thing, but when they can make a lot more money if they jump to a different department, or a different county, which that's a whole different can of worms, but I also had presented that statewide salary survey for county conservation. And I'm just wanting to hash this out before the budgets are finalized, because I'm, like I said, I'm trying to make a correction. I'm embarrassed to say we're still we will still be at the bottom of those lines. As far as administrative pay, I'll be at the bottom. My employees will be slightly less than a comparable road crew department, even with 10%. So I'm not asking to be paid like the county attorney or the sheriff. I'm just asking to be paid a fair wage for myself and my employees. And if it's our discretion, that's fine. But I just didn't want to insist with the auditor that we get paid 10% this year and then have this fight later.
No,
What is Sean doing?
You indicated in your email options that you or your board had at your disposal. What I'm indicating, speaking strictly for myself, is that this dollar figure, whatever that looks like at 7%, is what would be reflected in the budget that you submitted. In other words, you submitted a budget with X and it included 10%. We're saying we're going to give 7. So that budget's going to be reduced accordingly. But you also indicated that you had some options at your disposal. And what I just said, not speaking for Joe or Susie, was that we appropriate a certain amount of money. How your board spends that money is up to your board. You're 100% correct. They have the autonomy to do that. I'm just saying that coming back in 6 months, because, you know, those options didn't work out, or you didn't take those options, or whatever the case may be. This is what we would appropriate if we as a board decide to do that. And that would appropriate that amount to everybody accordingly. I understand totally what you're saying. I have had the same conversation, I think, with every department in the county, because there is a varying degree of, you know, salaries and so on and so forth. And it is, I mean, everybody's paying $6 for a dozen eggs. I get it. I understand. But I also have looked at all of the numbers over and over again, and our hands are tied in a lot of respects. And I truly am concerned about being able to sustain this without some changes. Now, there may be some coming down this legislative session. Maybe some folks have woke up and realized that, you know, maybe we were a little over the top. We can keep our fingers crossed. But as it stands right now, I can't count on that. But I reiterate, all I'm saying is that what we will appropriate, whatever we decide, whatever that amount is, doesn't preclude you from doing something within your own organization. And if, as you indicated in your email, that you have some options at your disposal, if you exercise those options, as long as you stay within the confines of your budget that we've approved, it's not an issue, at least not for me. I'm not putting words in Susie's or Joe's mouth.
I echo what Lee said. Realize I'm new on the board, and you got a conservation board that can do what they want with what money we give you. So,
Okay, well, I'll keep working on it, and I guess I'm not trying to get confrontational.
No,
I
I don't
think
want
we've
that
always
either.
worked well, our board and the board of supervisors, and obviously we depend on you. But sometimes you gotta speak up for yourself, and that's what we've done today, so.
I agree 150%, and I have absolutely no problem having the conversation. Not at all.
I appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it. So,
And then we'll, like I said, you're effectively, your hands are not tied. You might have to exercise some of those options that you talked about.
Okay,
And you may not. Like you said, you don't spend all your money anyway.
some years we do, but yeah, we'll see.
And we'll go from there, and we'll see, what all the numbers look like. You'll have a better idea. I mean, essentially, what you say, it's $8,000. Does that include IPers and Social Security?
Well, that's what I'd have to sort out with the
I'm sorry,
difference
what?
between the regular budget and the supplemental.
Okay, she's got,
Oh, I can
Might
do
be
that.
slightly different, but
$8,008.38.
total, I knew that, yeah, I knew that
does that
part.
include IPers and Social Security? Okay. Which, believe me, I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I absolutely do not. But that being said, I would ask you to find it in your budget.
Yes. Okay,
so is your new campground gonna be up and running this summer, or is there still some
well, I
stuff?
hope it is, but it's got a long ways to go
Has
right
it?
now, so we need a
Sometime through
mild
the season.
spring, and then, yeah, I would say June if we have a nice spring.
Good, good.
Wayne's gonna make that happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right in my wheelhouse.
I thought it was roads department and all, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, say stop the rain and it stops.
yeah. He's already waved his hand and it's gonna warm up at the end of the week.
Yeah, it's supposed to be up in the fifties, I seen.
That's what the weatherman says. That had nothing to do with me.
Oh,
We can only hope.
I appreciate all you
Yeah.
do, Sean.
Yeah.
I really
Thank you.
do. In a myriad of ways, especially on this deal with the barns and the new campground, and I understand the scenario. Are we,
While we're on budget,
yeah,
we've got, between doing our patch job that the DOT reimbursed us for and a couple other things, we've got a couple $100,000 extra that we did not anticipate as income. I anticipate we'll want to use that for rock this spring as additional material. So I'm just kind of, so we will be coming back for a budget amendment to reflect that extra income and expense on rock.
they'll save us on the other, well, it won't save us on the other end, but it'll allow us
It's,
to get more rock,
it,
which
it's,
Lord knows there's places that we. Of course, you won't need any out at Joe's with the bridge.
no,
No.
yeah, we'll just put the road closed signs up and it'll.
I haven't had a rock on my road for 4 or 5 years.
You're
I
not gonna
always
drive
hear
it.
that, and then I go back and check and find out that we've been rocking it.
There's maybe 2 cars a day on my road.
That's why I'm spending money on the
It is a
bridge.
hard place to get to.
Yeah,
In the fall, it's very busy. It's, it's for the heavy loads.
yeah, honestly, I'm hoping that after we take the embargo off, that your traffic increases. Because I would really like to drive the farm traffic off of that 170th through Vedic City and save that pavement, the wear and tear. So that is the reason we're hoping that 10 or 15 cars a day goes up to 30 or 40 or 50 to.
Well, west of me, they go out west, drop a mile south or half mile south,
Yeah.
then they come back across.
Yeah.
They'll come my way. Now to have more dust, then I'll have to do dust control. Well, I'm gonna get it either way, aren't I?
I apologize. It's the price of progress. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So one other budget question, since we have budget work session on here. 2 other budget questions. We do need to revisit this next week or whatever, as far as set that, but
I believe there are requirements based on the timeline,
okay,
that you can't set that.
that's fine. You know,
Isn't that correct? They have to wait until a certain time frame.
Okay, and that's fine. But the other thing is that since we're talking about budget, and our agreement with HR ends in June before the fiscal year starts. So we need to decide whether or not we're going to renew that or do something different. I think that I personally believe that Christie and Darcy have promoted a viable option. But we need to have that discussion to determine whether or not we need to include that $10,000.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about their viable solution.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. They presented it, but they can certainly present it again. I'm just saying that, we need to have that conversation before we set
So
by the
put it
budget.
on the agenda.
You handle some of it now before going to Jack.
Most of it.
Okay.
Darcy does any incoming workman's comp claims, obviously the payroll,
And files.
Okay.
so. I guess we would suggest looking at your use of Jack, how often. You use $10,000 worth, it's good to have a retainer and use them as needed. If there's something we want more legal help with.
Yeah, I think first thing I'd like to know is when does Jack become Chelsea? Because as he keeps leaving, Chelsea was gonna take over.
I feel like I read that was like a 2-year process.
Really? I couldn't remember for sure.
We can look at that.
I just think there are things that I want you guys to be ready for. FMLA is a huge one. You know, security of the files is a huge one for me.
I mean, we have that already.
Yeah, he doesn't have any files,
Okay.
so anyway, it's on the agenda or will be on the agenda, whatever. Reminder, conference board tomorrow at 8:30. And then I gotta go to Burlington tomorrow after the conference board. So. Anything else to come before the board? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those discussions, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.